I'm stood on Sheaf Street in Sheffield city centre, the main part of the ring road outside the railway station, and I can really smell the pollution, and that's not surprising because there's a large number of cars and buses and vans coming past. Sheffield clearly has a pollution problem, and in fact it regularly exceeds the legal limits. So to combat that, Sheffield City Council is trying to introduce a clean air zone, which will involve certain vehicles being charged £10 for some, £50 for others, currently commercial vehicles, but a lot of the pollution comes from private cars. But with people concerned about being able to access the city centre to visit loved ones, go to appointments, go to school, get jobs done, have people come round to get jobs, and especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis, is a clean air zone or chargeable clean air zone really the way forward?
A lot of these vehicles have one or two people in them. You think of a bus, you have a very high capacity, especially on some double-decker buses, and it really reduces the carbon emissions per person that vehicle takes on the street with them. And that's especially positive for places like the city centre, which are going to have, and places on the ring road that are going to have a lot of carbon emissions there. The way that we can start to sort of get people going on public transport is by making it reliable and affordable. They're the two biggest things that we need to be doing. If we have a public transport system that people can't rely on, then they're going to keep on using those cars, and they're going to be, the sole driver in that car, and that's going to, increase and increase and increase. That'll be the biggest, thing that people do, because, they need to get to work, they need to commute, they need to get to where they want to buy things, they need to get to, leisure activities, and they'll do that by driving rather than going on a bus if they can't rely on it.
If they actually cared about people's health, children's health, they wouldn't be charging, they'd just, if they were trying to package it up as car pollution, they just stop you driving there. There's no need for chargers. They are trying to help themselves in this financial crash that they are orchestrating on us. Small businesses, you've got your big businesses. Asda drivers will still be all right on the road. Sainsbury's. What about your small cafe on the corner who's barely making it meet because everything's gone up, and their van can't get to half the places that they're trying to deliver to? They are trying to ruin small businesses.
Do your homework on the 15-minute city in Sheffield. You are going to be charged to go in and out of your zone. Communist Britain, here we come.
I'm a nurse, and I was faced with no jab, no job. So to me, the vaccine's been proved to be one big scam. I don't know what everybody else feels about it. Yeah. So does this feel like a big scam? Yeah. I think it's a big scam. So if they really wanted to do something about the environment, would they have cut the bus services in Sheffield and the train services? So people who are reliant on their cars to get to work and to get their kids to school, because there's no alternative. But are they providing an alternative? No. And I'm old enough to remember Sheffield when the buses were virtually free. I don't know if anybody else here is old enough to remember that. And it meant that people didn't bother using their car because they could travel around the city for virtually nothing. So if they wanted to do something about this, then that's what they would do. But to my mind, the whole thing is one big scam.
So what can you tell me about the local Better Buses campaign?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've sort of heard quite a bit about them, and I've sort of seen quite a few of their meetings, and I think they're doing some really good things. They're calling for a lot of really sensible ideas that would allow for, a lot of cars to be taken off the road without penalties to those people in the cars. It's about making people want to go on buses and public transport rather than actually forcing people out of the cars. If you need to force people out of the cars using fines to those people, those negative sanctions are only going to make people, distrust the council more. If you really want to have a good relationship with, the people in your city and your voters, quite frankly, you need to be giving them a better alternative rather than making their only means of transport more expensive and worse.
Now, because there's not an obstruction that people are activating.
Guys, we need you. We need the police on our side. You need to take the uniforms off. Dig deep into your soul. You know what's happening.
Say no to Sheffield Council's chargeable clean air zone. Private cars will be next.
No gas tax! No gas tax! No gas tax! No gas tax!
My kids have got asthma, and the biggest it's a big deal. Sorry, there's loads of kids that got asked.
In the city centre.
Several hundred kids, people in Sheffield die prematurely every year because of poor air quality. The clean air zone has got huge amounts of support in Sheffield. Look at the small number what's here today. Clean air zone has got huge amounts of support in Sheffield. Thank you.
I've never done anything like this before in my life. I'm absolutely livid about this Sheffield City Council and what they're doing to us self-employed people. All we do is come to the city centre to service the city centre in our vans because we can't carry stuff. You know what I mean? I've been on this 2 years. I sent them I filled in a form 2 years ago about my concerns about CAS. I got a standard email back. I've never had a personal email back about it. I offered personally to come in and put my concerns to the to the council. Not one person came back to me. I was never offered the chance to come to the city centre, to the town hall and talk to them about it. I'm absolutely livid about it. Keep things on track. Don't make it political. It's all about the CAS. Because it is an absolute travesty. And what they've done to this city centre, where are the people? The only people that are here in the city centre are the ones who are having a drink, and us, and maybe a few other people doing demos. The shops have gone, John Lewis has gone, Marks will go. Poor old Atkinson's down there. Goodness gracious, how the hell they're keeping going, I just do not know.
To my mind, the whole thing is one big scam, including the idea that there's a climate crisis. I don't know what anybody else feels about that, but to my mind, that's a scam as well. So CO2 is about 0.03% of the atmosphere. The climate's changing all the time because of solar activity. It's not man-made activity. There's a tiny proportion of it. So we're being made to do these draconian things for what is just a lie.
I don't think you were here earlier. There were some speeches up at Pinston Street. Well, we had some speeches up at Pinston Street earlier, and there's a good handful of people who think that climate change and the climate crisis is all a scam. Obviously, that people do have different opinions. What message would you give to those who think it's a scam or a fraud?
Well, I mean, I would describe myself as a climate activist and, you know, an environmental activist. I do quite a lot of work around environmental activism, and a lot of my passion around public transport comes from the fact that, you know, all these cars on the road does cause climate change because, you know, it's carbon emissions. It contributes to the greenhouse effect. What I would say to those people is we have to look close to home. Sometimes the concept of climate change can be really difficult to, you know, wrap our head around because it's quite difficult to view sometimes, but that's because it's sort of hidden from us. It's hiding in plain sight. You look at the floods that go on in Sheffield and the surrounding areas all across the UK every year. They're caused by climate change. They're exacerbated by climate change. You know, the frequency of those floods gets higher and higher because climate change works. Not just, you know, the globe warming. You know, we hear the term global warming. It's not the same as climate change. Global warming is a facet of climate change. Climate change and, you know, air pollution can exacerbate current weather, so it makes it more extreme each time, which can add to the amount of precipitation we get, the amount of rain, and it can also, you know, it can saturate our soil and make it harder and harder for that soil to capture water, which leads to flooding. And that affects people's lives. So, you know, I would say look to your friend who had their business destroyed, their site destroyed from flooding. Look to your family member or friend who's had, you know, knee deep in water in their house. I would say that's the first thing you've got to think. Climate change is affecting us in places like the UK, in the rich developed West now. So we really need to be tackling it, otherwise it's going to be us who are facing big impacts like those in the global South, in places like Sub-Saharan Africa.
No!